Hey guys, welcome back to Revolution. Um, we're going to continue on with our 190 list of Scrivener, and we're examining that with Theodore Beza, with the King James translation. And what we've seen so far is I have proven that none of the issues that Scrivener has brought up have been translatable. And so let's look at this next one, Rabdos. So here we have Matthew here, and then we go down to chapter 10 and verse 10. We have Scrivener has changed it to Rabdos, which is in the plural, so that's the English word staff, or in the King James, staves. That's what he's assuming is needed there. So that's in the Complutensian polyglot, so that it's following the Complutensian again. So here we have Beza's and every other Ceteri omnes, which basically means all the editions, has Rabdon. So that is singular for staff. And so even some of the editions, like the uh, King James Version 2000 that I've got somewhere on my shelf there, they actually have the singular staff there. Following, I guess, thinking that they're following Theodore Beza's singular there. Um, or sometimes people are correcting the King James. They're going through and saying, well, it should be singular, it should be plural, and all this stuff. And so I find that people doing this many times, they don't understand the issues involved. This is why when I see people online, they're like, "Oh, let's do another edition of the Textus Receptus. Let's do this and do that." And a lot of the time, I'm not seeing them at a level of fluency in the Greek to actually do an update of Scrivener, of Theodore Beza, or the underlying Greek text of the King James. It's like I just don't trust that these guys are actually um, doing, going to be capable of doing this. And so let's just look at this issue here with Rabdos, because this is one that I know a fair bit about. And so um, let's look at the 191. So this is Matthew chapter 10, verse 10. And so we just read that one there, the Rabdos and Rabdon. So let's look at Scrivener's, the image there. So we have the Rabdos is asterisk, and so this shows that it's part of the 190 issues, but it's also bolden and got a 4 there. That means it's part. It changes that word in the Westcott and Hort text. So let's check this out. So here we are. This is the Hathi Trust link, and so Monday, Rabdos, Axios. So we have Rabdos here, the asterisk, which we know points to the 190 issues, but then we have a 4, and the Westcott and Hort text is going with Rabdon. Okay, so that's important to point out from the beginning here. Let's have a look at Beza's 1598. So Monday, Rabdon, Axios. So we clearly see the Rabdon there. The Rabdon, it has a footnote in the Annotationes of the 1598 of Theodore Beza, which has Bakalam. So Bakalam, let's just go down to the bottom here. Okay, so it says, I'll try to enlarge it a little bit more. That's as far as I can go. Bakalam, and it has Rabdon. In the Hebrew, Makel. And it says to see Genesis 32:10, Exodus 12:11. So these are all things that I could go through and have a good look at. And so, yeah, he basically is pointing out that you got Rabdon. I can't see the plural Rabdos there, but that's fine. I'm just pointing out that there is a footnote there, and that Theodore Beza explains something there. I can't read the Latin, but that would be like the next step. If you're going to study that out, you go through those verses and check all that. But obviously, I don't think I really need to do that, because I'll show you why. And firstly, we'll just go through the King James and see what that says. So it says, "Nor scripture for your journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves." So staves is the rhabdos that Scrivener thinks it's rhabdos, where I think I can clearly show you that it's rhabdon in the singular. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. "For the workman is worthy of his meat." Okay, so he's got a few, he's got asterisks there for that saying in the brackets. Either two coats. Yeah, okay, so that's all fine. Okay, so we see here I've got 1884. It should be 1881 there. Rhabdos is the reading of Scrivener, so he's changed it from Beza's rhabdon. He's read the King James and gone, hang on, it's plural. It says staves. So that's the plural word for it. Why have they got that? So when we read through Stephanus, he has rhabdon, Erasmus in his first edition, second edition, and the whole entire Reformation had rhabdon, okay, except for the Complutensian Polyglot. Now, it's interesting, Complutensian Polyglot, they also had a Latin translation there, and sometimes they deviated from it, sometimes they agreed with it, but there seems to be influence of translation sometimes in their final readings, influence from other languages in the final reading of their Greek. And so we see in the King James it just has staves. Now here in Tyndale we see a staff in his 1534. In the Coverdale we have 1535 a staff. In the 1560 we have a staff. That's the Geneva. In the Bishops we have a staff. But then we have staves. Okay, so anyone just doing a cursory look at this would go, okay, well, yeah, obviously they've followed singular here, and it's become plural here. Okay, so you can clearly see that, and if you were just doing a cursory look, and that's what I believe that Scrivener does on a lot of these issues, he just has a cursory look. He's not thinking about it. He's not looking at the context. He's not looking at exactly what the Greek is saying here. So the King James translator's notes say this is not, so it's quite deceptive. The King James translator's notes were written probably like 100 years ago, 150 years ago, but they're not part of the 1611. You know what I mean? It's like they call them, these are the King James translator's notes. And so they say staves, Greek, a staff, but this is not in the 1611 margin. So that just points that out straight away. It's like, because some people go, well, the translators say this in the Greek and all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, but that's not the translators saying that. That's people coming afterwards. See, people having a cursory look, going through and saying, well, the Geneva's singular. Why is the King James plural? But the Greek's singular as well. And then they're coming up with these problems. But listen to this. When Jesus was talking to the 12, he mentioned several objects. Obviously, when we look into the synoptics, we see that forbidding a singular staff was not forbidden by Christ, because in the Greek, it is understood that rhabdon was meant to be singular in a sense for each individual. In English, the context warrants the plural staves or staffs, is what I've got in the 2016 edition, because if it was singular, the English speaker would immediately assume that each individual was forbidden to take a staff. But by making it plural, as the context clearly portrays, the misapplying of the singular staff to each individual and not to the entire group is not mistakenly read into the text. which many modern versions have found creates a glaring contradiction that the King James Version does not have here. So the King James Version and the TR agree perfectly here, as Scrivener did not define the word in its plural context, because there's the lexical context, the lexical definition. We can clearly see that rabdon, just by looking at the Greek there and its inflection, is singular. But we see rabdos, that's plural, and so these must equal each other. But in the context, if I'm saying to you, hey, there's 12 people there, and I'm saying, don't bring a phone. Am I saying to about one phone to the whole group? If I know like most people have a staff, if I say don't bring your staff, obviously I'm saying it's in the plural because I'm talking about 12 people and I'm talking about their objects. And so, and when you read through the context of this, so he's saying, nor script for your journey, neither two coats. So is he just talking about two coats there? No, if he's talking to the 12, then he's talking about 24 coats. So that's the context. Neither shoes. How many shoes? There'd be 24 shoes there. Nor yet staves. How many staves? Well, there'd be 12. So he's saying, but he's actually pointing out there. I should clarify this, that he's saying in the plural, don't bring staffs. Don't bring a staff. And basically, it's pretty much a non-issue. Scrivener's made it an issue by confusing himself with it. So we see in the King James it's the plural. In the other ones it's singular. But the King James actually thwarts the concept of this becoming a contradiction, because in other places in the New Testament it says that you can bring a staff. Okay, so he's talking about staffs plural here. He's speaking to a plural bunch of people. And so, like if I said, leave your phone here to a crowd of people, am I speaking plural or singular? Phone is singular, but it becomes plural in context, the same with rabdon. And so, by saying don't bring a staff, it's like people think, oh, well, he's talking to one person, don't bring a staff, but when you understand he's talking to a group of people, don't bring staffs, plural, and it gets rid of that contradiction. It follows rabdon perfectly because that is made plural in the context. Now, if I was to translate this, rabdos, I would get exactly what the King James has here. If I was to translate this, and with the knowledge that I've just shown you, I would get exactly what the King James has here. So really, it's not a translatable issue. You can have rabdos. I mean, rabdos might help in a sense where if people are trying to get rid of contradictions, and do a bit of apologetic work in their Bible by, I mean, you can correctly say staff here. I mean, the King James could have said, nor yet a staff, like the other ones had. But it just looks so singular when he's talking to a plural bunch of people. And so that's why they pluralized it. Just like, a phone. Don't bring your phone, So anyway, I don't want to ramble on too much here, but I think you can see why this is unnecessary. Now, if we go to the Greek, so we can see here I've got rabdon in the search. We can see the newer Greek coming down. Well, notice there's a change from Westcott and Hort there. So they've got rabdon. So they've actually got the correct reading. Be interesting to see what they actually have there. Westcott and Hort, Revised Version, Matthew 10:10. Not the Revised Standard Version, or just the RV. Notice these newer Bibles, they're just gone into oblivion. You have to fully do a Google search to find the Revised Version. It's like, because it's just nothing now. It's who's using it. I don't know anyone who's turning around saying we should use it. Okay, so it's interesting. Vines, because I know I use Vines quite a lot, and Vibras. Okay, nor script for your journey, neither two coats nor shoes, nor yet staves. Okay, so script, shoes, staves. Okay, so let's just zoom in there. Rabdos, a staff, rod, scepter. Use of Aaron's rod, a staff on a journey, Matthew 10:10. Revised Version has staff, so it has the singular there. The King James Version has staves. So Luke 9:3, Mark 6:8, staff. So yeah, so there is also an apologetic reason why the King James translators have the plural there. If you look into the other, into the synoptics, and you look at the other verses, they will say things like take one staff, and so it's interesting that it's saying don't take staffs. So it's like, okay, you can take one, but not plural, and so um, there's a whole bunch of issues that can come up when you translate that singular as well. And so these are things that have got to be thought through. I might even have touched on this a little bit on my website, I'm not sure. And sometimes you come to a conclusion, and later on you're like, okay, well, that's not the best conclusion, but I think, okay, staves in the King James Version is plural of staff. When applied to a stick, it is pronounced as in ask in the Italian sound. So Harry stirs. So in both Matthew 10:10 and 9:3, the UBS has neither a staff, contradicting Mark 6:8, where all texts have only a staff. And so, yeah, there is an issue there. It goes back. It's an old issue, Rabdon or Rabdos. And so usually where these apologetic type of issues appear, people go, well, let's go with the safe reading of this or that, But yeah, so it's worth further study. But for our King James, for looking at a 190 list, we see that translates as plural. We understand that this can also translate as plural in the context. And so that's why I believe that it's unnecessary to change it to Rabdos. It should remain as Rabdon. Okay, so thanks for joining us, guys. We will go through the next one, which is Beelzebub.